The Mail on Sunday, November 9, 2008. Headline: DVLA still sell your data without checks. The Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency, DVLA, is still selling the names and addresses of motorists to wheel camping firms without carrying out checks on their background and credentials, despite a pledge by ministers to introduce tougher controls. 3 years ago, the government said more would be done to prevent data on car owners falling into the hands of rogue parking firms. Action was promised after the Mail on Sunday disclosed that drivers' details were being sold by the DVLA for £2.50 a time to unlicensed operators and even criminals imprisoned for extortion. The Department of Transport responded by bringing in fresh checks on about 80 companies entitled to receive information via a secure electronic link to the DVLA database of Britain's 38 million motorists. These involved a 6-month probationary period for firms wishing to join the register, criminal record checks on their directors, and compulsory membership on an accredited industry organisation such as the British Parking Association. Announcing the crackdown, the then Transport Minister Stephen Reederman declared, protecting the privacy and details of hundreds of thousands of motorists continue to be sold to firms that have not undergone rigorous vetting procedures, simply because they make individual applications for the information by bypassing the vetting system. Parking firms that apply for information by post are not obliged to undergo any of the security procedures that apply to operators seeking data via the email link. All they have to do is fill in the form entitled Request for Information for those who issue a parking charge notice and send it back to the DVLA. The one-page document, which can be downloaded without restriction from the internet, requires no criminal record checks, referees, or documentary evidence about the company's credentials. The applicant is asked to give the registration number of the vehicle and then answer the questions. Why do you want the information, and how are you going to use the information? The astounding number of requests made in this way suggests it has been widely used to avoid background checks. Figures obtained by the Lib Dem Transport spokesman Norman Baker show that 334,569 inquiries, about 20% of the total, were made by this method in the past year. Of these postal requests, only 1 in 1,000 was turned down, on the grounds that the applicant had no right to receive the information. In 1 month, not one such request was rejected out of 28,501 inquiries. The following month saw 4 out of 26,607 deemed unjustified. In all, from October 2007 to September 2008, only 324 postal requests were rejected for failing to meet the reasonable cause criteria. In addition, just one form can be used to submit requests for information on up to 15 drivers. In the same 12-month period, 1.4 million applications were made by firms which had undergone the new security checks using the password-controlled email link to the DVLA's headquarters in Swansea. Ministers ordered an inquiry in 2005 after the Mail on Sunday revealed that 2 criminals had obtained drivers' details from the DVLA. The men, who ran a wheel camping company in Portsmouth called Aquarius Security, deliberately trapped drivers by blocking them in with a van. They also demanded a £300 fee to release cars. The pair were convicted of extortion, with Mr. H sentenced to 3 years in jail and Mr. M to 4. Astonishingly, they had been able to find out where a car owner lived simply by giving the DVLA a registration number. Despite the government's pledge to do more to prevent private information about motorists falling into wrong hands, MPs, motoring organisations and privacy campaigners remained concerned. Parking enforcement on private land, such as retail parks, hospitals and railway stations is still an unregulated industry, and it is difficult and expensive for motorists to challenge fines. Campaigners are also angry that the DVLA officials are not required to notify vehicle keepers requests for their personal data has been made. The latest statistics released last week by Junior Transport Minister Jim Fitzpatrick in response to questions from Mr. Baker from police, local authorities and other public bodies. Mr. Baker said last night, nothing much has changed. Companies with something to hide or that fall short of standards required can get round the rules without difficulty. DVLA officials say the law obliges them to disclose drivers' names and addresses to parking operators, solicitors, banks, finance companies, petrol stations, bailiffs and private investigators. Critics, however, claim the system is open to abuse and want the Information Commissioner who supervises the data protection laws to intervene. The DVLA said that the income is not profit and covers only the cost of running the operation. It said unauthorized parking on private land is a widespread problem. The DVLA has to strike a balance, allowing fair enforcement but protecting the motorists. A spokesman for Information Commissioner Richard Thomas said they would study the Mail on Sunday story and would not hesitate to take further action if required. He added, if drivers have evidence that their information is being used inappropriately, they should complain to the Information Commissioner's office.